slide that we saw recently. It also includes deer hunt areas with greater than 75% of private land. What does that mean? What that means is if that unit is owned, 75% or more of it is owned by the private land, there's no impact on the LOP tags.
Mr.
Why
Hess,
is that? Because
if
that's
you
good
could-
land.
Mr. Hess, if you could wrap up, you have used up your time. And I just want you to know, we did read also your letter that you sent in to us.
Okay, I appreciate that. I'll just jump to the conclusion. If in those 5 units where the private land is greater than 75%, if there's no limitation on LOP tags, if they are assigned based upon acreage, why are you punishing the landowners in the South Fork in the new Aldrich unit where they're doing just as much to their private land as the owners in those 5 units where you're not limiting it? It should not be, the allocation of landowner tags should not be arbitrary. I believe it is arbitrary because you can't explain why what they're doing on their private land is more important than what the other landowners, as in the Aldrich unit, are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hess, for your testimony as well as for your comprehensive letter that you sent in to us. We have questions from Commissioner Hall DeFries and also from, I think, Commissioner Morrison. So go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I do a lot better, I think, with numbers, trying to understand kind of like actual impacts and understand the change as a whole. So I guess I have a 2-part question. The first part is, under this new designation, I think, Brian, you mentioned that your estimate is that 2/3 of available LOP tags would be used, or what was that 2/3 percentage? And you can get back to me on that while I ask the second question. The second question is, Mr. Anderson mentioned that the Aldrich unit is going from 1,800 tags to 1,100 total tags, and that 15% of that goes to LOP tags, and that's a reduction from past tags to what the proposed tags are by 40%. Could you help me understand that equation and how those numbers are working out?
Chair Wall, Commissioner Hall DeFries, and Lee might do a little bit of math on his end to help me out here. When it comes to the 40% piece, but generally speaking, we had about a 9% reduction in controlled hunt tags available this year, and that's due to declining deer populations. That area around IZ and John Day is an area that we had an emergency tag reduction last year because of some very poor survival through the winter. And we've got our deer study going on there. We have one in Interstate Unit, one in that Aldrich area, and saw some market difference in survival through that winter period and had to make some emergency reductions last year. Those carried through into reductions this year. And so across the board, there is fewer deer tags available in 2026 than there was in 2025. Under a 2-tiered formula, the proportion of those available tags that would essentially be available for landowners would be a little bit bigger proportion. But overall, like, we had a pretty big reduction in tags for this fall. And so there will be some reductions, more in some places than in others. And that area in Aldrich is one of those.
Okay, so just to clarify, I'm understanding what I'm hearing. So you're saying we know that like tags have gone down because of populations. That makes sense. That's one of the purposes of these herd ranges, which I think is good management. But overall, you're saying statewide, there should be a higher percentage of LOP tags available but that depends on unit by unit. The Aldridge unit is one unit where that is not necessarily the case, just by the fact of that range and how the jurisdiction lies. Okay.
Yeah, and Chair Wall, Commissioner Hall DeFreeze, part of it too is how these deer, the biology of where the herd range lives. And so this is getting in the weeds a little bit, but one element of the landowner preference program is that if a landowner has land in multiple units and gets a tag in for their property in one unit, they can use it in another unit as long as the bag limit and the season dates are exactly the same. And so when you look at that, those landowners in the IZ area that might have had land in 3 different units under the WMU structure, not all the landowners that applied for tags in Murderers Creek could get those tags. But if you had land that was in Murderers Creek, but you also had land in the Ochoco, you could apply for an Ochoco tag. Those tags typically didn't fully exhaust, and then you could use that tag on your property in the Ochoco, or you could choose to use it on your property in the Murderers Creek. And so with the alignment of hunt areas to match deer herds, some landowners likely picked up new opportunities to look at draw odds, and other landowners lost some opportunities to look at draw odds and apply for a different unit based on the odds of drawing. And that's part of what makes a full assessment of like what we think could happen when it comes to applications. Some landowners that have larger properties and multiple units, it's hard for us to know what they're going to choose to put in for and how that affects other landowners within those units and a number of requests for tags. If that was a little in the weeds, but hopefully that made some sense.
That was great. Thank you.
Other questions, commissioners?
Chair Wall, I had, this is Commissioner Morrison. I did have my hand up. I think my question has just been answered by Brian. Again, I want to put an underline under this. I believe what we're saying is, again, we're seeing an overall reduction in number of tags of about 9% year over year, but we think these formulas in the aggregate are going to allow for more LOP permits. Is that correct, Brian? I mean, I understand it's going to vary unit by unit, but looking statewide.
Yes, Chair Wall, Commissioner Morrison, overall, we think that this will result in a higher proportion of the available tags being available to landowners than what we saw under the 3-tiered system with a tier that restricted down to 10%. But overall, how many tags will be available depends on how many tags there are total. And so if tag numbers drop in the controlled hunt drawing, they will drop for landowners also.
Yeah, and I appreciate that clarification, because I think what we're hearing, from many who are providing testimony here is what I think we all understand and appreciate, which is that private landowners are extremely important for healthy wildlife habitat and healthy wildlife populations. And through this program, we're trying to acknowledge that and express, our understanding and appreciation, for what private landowners are doing for wildlife in the state. And so that's why I just wanted to draw that particular line under that point. I think it's really important one.
Thank you. Great comment, Commissioner Morrison. Vice Chair Hatfield, I just have one follow-up on this one. If I could do with my quick question, then I'll come right back to your question. Brian, to follow up on the questions, the two that you just had, will the 2 to 3 years that we have for testing this and trying this, is this one of the key questions that's likely to have more light shined on it in that process? Will we know more about the impacts to the different landowners after those 2 to 3 years?
Chair Wall, I believe we will. And I think it might take 2 or 3 years, because there are landowners that will be able to have a choice on deer hunt areas that they want to apply for tags for, and that And that may take them a year or two to see what other landowners are applying for and to look at their draw odds to kind of finalize that. But yes, like Mr. Foster presented in his presentation, we can look at how many landowner applications came in for a hunt. We can look at how many of those were successful in getting a tag, how many were not, and we'll be able to look at that once we start getting those applications in and get a hunting season or two underneath us.
Thank you. That's helpful. Vice Chair Hatfield Hyde.
Sorry, thank you. I guess I think this is kind of redundant and maybe has been answered. I came into this, reviewing the material sent out and kind of trying to think about what's going on here. And a part of this is change, which is always scary. But what I really appreciated was this idea of patience as this rolls out and we see how it kind of shakes out. I am still a little uncomfortable right at the moment with just the circumstances that are going on in this particular Aldridge unit. And what I don't like hearing is for public or private landowners to be thinking that they're somehow being punished or not doing enough restoration work. We continue to hear a drumbeat across the east side of Oregon of, fear around the state of our mule deer. So that continues to be an issue. But if you guys could just comment a little bit more about this particular Aldridge unit, what is happening with mule deer there, despite the good efforts by private landowners, what the emergency, I'm blanking on the right word, you know what I'm trying to say, had happened, just a little bit more about that, just for comfort here on what in the heck's going on.
I'm going to see if Lee wants to answer this, and if not, I'll take it.
No, happy to talk a little bit more about Aldridge since it's in my backyard. Chair Wall, Commissioner Hatfield Hyde. Yeah, so we have a few things happening in Aldridge that have contributed to concern around the LOP program specifically as we move into this new deer hunt area structure. The first is biological with declining deer populations. As Brian said, we have a large research project going on up there right now. And what that research project is finding is incredibly low adult female survival rates, poor body condition, repeatedly. And there's a few contributing factors to that. Especially in the last couple of years, we've burned up a large portion of that herd summer range in the summer of 2024. As I was standing in my backyard watching the smoke roll across the hillside. And then about 2 weeks after we burned up their summer range, the Rail Ridge fire kicked off and burned up a very large portion of their winter range. So those deer essentially didn't have anything to eat in the summer after the Falls fire, and then didn't have anything to eat in the winter after the Rail Ridge fire when they got to winter range. Add to that, longer term patterns of forest management changes, predation, recreation, everything we've heard about repeatedly. So we have a declining deer population in that herd range. Additionally, that herd range took all of the Murders Creek unit, all of the Ochoco unit, or a third of the Ochoco unit, and about a third of the Silvies unit, and lumped those three areas together. And so the combination of those three wildlife management units made it challenging to set tag numbers initially, because management strategies, long-term management strategies across those 3 units varied. We were typically running a 25% harvest success rate, and Ochoco typically had a lot of tags. Murders Creek, typically we were seeing a much higher success rate with a lower tag number. Same story in Sylvies. And so how to square the different management strategies of those 3 wildlife management units within a new deer hunt area resulted in a lot of discussion. And the recommendations we came out with were quite conservative until we could see how hunters would distribute themselves on the landscape and how the deer population would respond in terms of trajectory to the multiple stressors that they're facing. But that all comes together to make even a 15% allocation for LOP tags generate a lower number of total LOP tags available for those landowners.
Lee, I really appreciate that additional information. And I think it just compounds all the issues that are being faced, including fire and the impact of fire on these lands. I appreciate those thoughts.
Chair Wall, Commissioner Spellbrink has his hand up.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Spellbrink. Thank you, Debbie.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Wall. Hard to know what question to ask here, but like I say, I really hate to see landowners who put all that effort into the land and the habitat and then, lose opportunity. I understand I'm a fisherman, and boy, I hate it when we lose opportunity. It's you don't always know if you're going to catch something, but you just hate to lose the opportunity to try. And I don't know if, like I say, this maybe down the road, this would be a good workshop item between, landowners, big landowners and commission and staff, and where we get down and talk. Maybe there's some ways to think outside the box on some of this. At this point, I don't know what you can do, but it's like, harvest rates that was brought up, on private land, that's not part of the equation, I'm guessing, Brian, right? The fact if harvest rates are low for or similar to on public land as they are in the landowner pieces, that's not part of the equation, I'm guessing, though, is it?
Chair Wall, Commissioner Spellbrink, we have the ability to look at harvest rate for LOP tags. In particular, that gets a little bit messier when you're looking at draw tag holders that can hunt private with permission, or they can hunt public, and some of them are hunting both or one and not the other. Mr. Foster, I think you had some harvest success rates, but it's kind of rolled up over Eastern Oregon wide. And in general, correct me if I'm wrong, it was tended to be lower for those private landowners than for the draw hunters. Can you confirm that, Lee?
I think it comes in slightly higher for LOP tags. Yeah, but I believe the statewide success rate's around 30%. We're talking 35-40% on average for LOP tags, so just slightly higher.
Right. Yeah, I guess, like I say, just trying to think outside the box here. Whether down the road there could be some of those landowner tags could be, say, 4-point or better or something like that would cut down on the harvest opportunity on the surface. Anyway, just like I say, trying to think of outside the box. Just I really hate to see our landowners that likes to provide all the habitat and do all the work, and then they feel like they're getting nothing for it. And like I say, I don't know where to go with it. It's just a problem that I don't have a solution for right now.
Yeah, Chair Wall, Commissioner Spellbrink, we would, we're right there with you. We would love to see some recovery in some deer populations. We would love to be able to see both landowners and hunters applying in the draw to have better hunting opportunities, better chances to get tags, better success rates. And that's our goal with the new mule deer plan, is to improve our management so that we can see those improvements.
And I guess we keep talking about look at it 2 and 3 years. I would say, let's look at it in 2 years. Let's not let it go any longer. And we have to at least look at it and see what kind of data we have.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think that brings us to the end of our questions, and
Chair Wall.
Yeah.
You,
Go ahead.
Commissioner Moldall has his hand up.
Go
And
ahead, Commissioner Moldall.
Dallas Halder-Free.
Thank you, Director Colbert. Thank you, Chair Wall. I think we've heard across the board here today this universal concern for the decline of mule deer. That's shared feeling, and I commend the department's work to lead with science-based allocations. I'm trying not to go too far into the weeds, but I'm very curious about how landowner preference tags are used. Obviously, they're antlerless tags and antlered tags. Are we seeing a lot of use of landowner permit tags for antlerless deer? Could you help educate, expound on how that allocation of tags for mule deer in particular are used?
And we're getting some feedback. So if everybody who is online could mute themselves, that would be great.
Chair Wall, Commissioner Moldall, so with these landowner tags, there are some opportunities for landowners to use a tag to take a antlerless animal if they choose. Generally, that's only happening in conditions where they've got some conflict and some ag conflict. And so having some flexibility for that can be great. It's not huge numbers though. Our hunting in Oregon has been for really a couple of decades now, really focused on bucks, because at the rate we're harvesting bucks, we're having little to no impact on overall populations. And so we've been very conservative in that regard, and those antlerless opportunities, while we have a few controlled hunts in some ag areas, and a landowner could choose to use an antlered tag to take an antlerless, that's pretty uncommon. There may be times where a landowner is using that as a way to have a grandkid have some success and be able to fill a tag when there's abundant deer on their property and there's not a buck opportunity, but that's not real common.
Thank you.
I just have more of a comment to finish off what I want to say here, but I just agree, as a landowner whose family has taken advantage of LOP tags, and also as someone who really understands, especially in post-fire conditions, how private landowners are oftentimes the first to start restoring habitat and pouring a lot of their own money and sweat and tears in that process, and making sure that habitat is kind of recovering as quickly as soon as possible. I want to, it's a tough, I just really appreciate and really understand where the landowners are coming from here, because I know some of these landowners in these areas, and they're fantastic stewards of the land. And it's unfortunate circumstances to see, mule deer populations declining and that having negative impacts, and them feeling unfairly kind of punished because of that, even though they're really leading the charge in likely, the best type of recovery that we can get for these mule deer. And so just keeping that in mind, I really do, I agree with Commissioner Spellbrink. I think if we can do a 2-year review, I know you want to have a good numbers and good data to be able to do a review. I would really hope that we could do that sooner rather than later. I think it would also be a really good idea, you know, maybe not necessarily formally in front of the commission, but if you could keep this particular Aldridge unit in the know, maybe in a year of what things are looking like, and we can continue to have really open and candid conversation with them. I think that that would be really helpful. The last thing that I want to say is I would love to see, and I don't know if this is, if this program is still in process, but the Mule Deer program where there was small private landowner grants for restoration efforts, I think that those funds have kind of declined or aren't there maybe anymore. But just a plug, if we are able to pass the 1% for wildlife, I would love to see some strong prioritization of mule deer habitat on private lands, and for the state to be able to show their support of knowing, you know, what good leverage these private landowners are for getting good work done, and it can be mutually beneficial. I think that could be a good avenue that we should really look at. So thank you.
Chair Wall, you're muted.
Just checking, do you see other hands up?
Not seeing any other hands at this time.
Thank you very much. Good discussion and questions, commissioners. Great responses, and it was helpful to get the explanations we did from the staff, and great comments about the role of landowners in this. So thank you all. I think we'll go to a vote. So is there a motion on this one?
I move to amend OAR Chapter 635, Divisions 075 and 190 as proposed by staff.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to amend OAR Chapter 635, Divisions 075 and 190, as was just read into the record. Michelle, can we do a voice?
Chair Wall, Commissioner Labhart has his hand raised.
Commissioner Labhart.
Could we have just a short discussion before we vote?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to support this based upon, you know, what I'm hearing from the rest of the commissioners who had some very, I think, encouraging comments about this. You know, it is something new. It's something different, and there's a lot of reasons for why it happened. I think the staff has done their homework with some of the interest groups now, fully realize there's some that like this and some that don't like it at all. But we've done the homework on it. We're directing 2-year review process. We've got some issues out there. You know, I grew up in the John Day area, and I've seen Murders Creek now nuked. Last year, Sylvia's Valley nuked. I've seen the Canyon Creek fire nuke 100,000 acres, and there was some significant reductions in this. I've also seen that since I sit on OWEB, there are dollars available for post-fire restoration on private lands. There's OWEB dollars for habitat improvement projects. I think the South Fork John Day Watershed Council has been the benefit of that, and it's been hugely beneficial to them, both from a private landowner perspective and a wildlife and a fisheries perspective. So there's opportunities out there. While it's not perfect, let's give it a try, folks, and see if it works. And I know that there's going to be folks that say, well, it hurts me personally, but it maybe doesn't hurt others. It's a compromise. Let's just give it a try to see if we can make it work. That's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Labhart. Good comments. Others? Any other hands up that you can see, Director? Vice Chair.
Yeah, I kind of want to echo Commissioner Labhart. I am going to support this, but I am really discouraged that, you know, especially for this Aldridge unit, and I think I understand why. But this is an area where I think as a department, we need maybe a little extra outreach right now to really share what's going on here. Because I also think that this is change and it's going to shake it up, right? It's shaking things up. But I do choose to support this.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else before we go to the vote?
Sorry, Chair Wall, I do have a.
Go ahead.
a-
Go ahead.
I think I'm sitting here kind of trying to know what my vote is going to be. And I just want to, I think I have to take into account kind of the picture as a whole. If I could just look at this Aldridge unit, I would vote no. But I think from what I'm understanding from staff, that overall we're getting higher percentage of LOP. We're trying to be fair to both private and public hunters. This is a tough one for me. And so I just want to voice that I really feel for this particular unit. And I just, definitely echo Vice Chair Hatfield Hyde. Let's put a little extra into this unit. I know that you all have, but I think we need to continue to look at it closely. And then as folks like Commissioner Lobhart, maybe we need to look at OWEB and maybe look at some state opportunities to prioritize this area for some restoration efforts. So thank you.
Thank you. And I think we've heard some fairly general consensus on keep it to 2 years if we can, and some real support for communicating with Aldrich, which it seems like there's been some of that already, a lot of that already, and just keeping it up would be great. So let's go ahead to the voice vote then, please, Michelle.
Haldefreeze,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Modal,
Yes.
Labhart,
Yes.
Spellbrink,
I'll abstain. I'm just not comfortable.
Hatfield Hyde,
Yes.
Wall.
Yes. Thank you. It passes with one abstention, and we will move to the next item. Commissioners, I need to just back up a bit and check if I think that I may have missed a testimony from somebody. We have already taken the vote on Exhibit B, but I had listed somebody from the Burns Paiute tribe that was trying to testify and didn't call on that person. Michelle, was Rick Eichstad trying to testify?
Chair Wall, we did follow up with Rick, and
Okay,
he was not needing to testify.
perfect. Thank you, thank you. Then we are at the point where we have one more item. Commissioners, let's take a 5-minute break and come back and do the Coquille Conservation Hatchery Program. And it'll run probably a little bit past noon, but we will still finish maybe before 12:30. If that's okay with you, 5 minutes and be back if you will, and we'll do the last item. Welcome back, everyone. I think we're ready for item D, Exhibit D, and we have Greg Hutchko and John Ogan ready to do presentations on the Coquille River Fall Chinook Conservation Hatchery Program. So if we could go ahead and start, and I think, Greg, that you're going to kick this off.
Yes, thank you, Chair Wall. Can you see the presentation and hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Good morning.
We have the presentation in the wrong view mode. We are seeing your notes.
You're in the notes, Greg.
Okay. See why that is not showing the other way around.
Greg, would you like me to share screen and you can just tell me when to advance?
That would be great if, yes, thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Are we good?
Yes.
I do apologize. I am not. Let me open up my notes. Okay. My apologies for that. Good morning, Chair Wall, Vice Chair Hatfield-Hyde, Commissioners, Director Colbert. For the record, I'm Greg Hutchko, the Umpqua Watershed District Manager, and I'm here today to discuss the Coquille River Fall Chinook Conservation Hatchery Program. With me is John Ogan from the Coquille Indian Tribe. John leads the tribe's Natural Resources Office. ODFW and the tribe worked together under the new MOU in 2022 to develop a conservation hatchery program in response to low fall Chinook returns in the Coquille River. The Commission approved the program in August of 2022, and today I plan to discuss the program's successes, challenges, and seek approval for a modification to help make it more successful. You could please scroll to the next slide. First, I would like to familiarize everyone with the location of the Coquille River. This is a coastal system that spans just over 1,000 square miles in Southwest Oregon and flows through the town of Bandon before entering the Pacific Ocean just south of Coos Bay. Next slide. The Coquille River fall Chinook population has historically been healthy and abundant, but has dropped dramatically since 2017. Here, I'd like to point out trends from 1986 to 2017. During this time frame, the average abundance was over 10,000 fish, and the lowest observed was 3,500 in 2007. 2007 marked a general decline in other coastal populations associated with poor ocean conditions. But you can see the Coquille River recovered from that, reaching a high of 32,000 fish in 2010. In 2018, it crashed to 500 fish and has remained around that level. Adult escapement of the spawning grounds has been below the CMP conservation threshold for 8 consecutive years as well. This is unique to the Coquille River and does not align with other population trends from neighboring basins like the Coos or Umpqua. Generally, we see these populations cycle together. However, recent declines in these systems have not been as drastic, nor have they stayed low for as long. Next slide. Assessment of the population was done in 2020, and multiple limiting factors were identified. Although habitat and environmental factors have played a role, one of the major contributors is believed to be predation by introduced species. At this point, I would like to turn it over to John Ogan to discuss recent management actions. Next slide.
Chair Wall. Yeah, thank you. Chair Wall, Vice Chair Hatfield-Hyde, Commission members, and Director Colbert. Debbie, great to see you all today. First, I just want to share that Coquille Tribal Council Chairwoman Brenda Mead shares her well wishes and greetings to all of you, and also acknowledge that Councilman Don Garrett is in your virtual audience today as well. Yeah, as Greg said, we've been working hard cooperatively together under our MOA on the Coquille River for a while now, and some of the management actions we've been doing include those on the slide there. We've been doing extensive efforts to address the limiting factors, including continuing our habitat restoration work, along with smallmouth bass suppression efforts. We do that through intensive electrofishing, both the Coquille Tribe and ODFW. We also have a Coquille River Steppe Association sponsored smallmouth bass derby that's very popular and effective in removing bass. We've also worked together on both legislative and administrative regulation law changes to permit spearfishing for smallmouth bass as another tool to address this limiting factor. As indicated there on the slide, of course, one of the dials always turned has to do with harvest. Chinook harvest was limited to hatchery only fall Chinook in years 2018 and 2019. The department took that to a full angling, Chinook angling closure from the years 2020 through 2024. Enhanced hatchery origin Chinook abundance did allow a conservative hatchery only retention opportunity in this past year, 2025. It was fantastically popular. Really glad we're able to make that happen. Additionally, and why we're here today, together we added a conservation hatchery program in 2022 to help work with these other actions we're doing to help bolster the natural spawning fall Chinook population. Next slide, please. Thank you, Michelle. So further detailing that management action, the Conservation Hatchery Program. In 2022, ODFW and the Coquille Tribe worked side by side to develop this program to expand our collective management response. That program established the following objectives to guide the implementation and evaluation of the program in the Coquille River Basin. These are the goals in the Conservation Hatchery Plan that was approved by the Commission in 2022. First, prevent extirpation of naturally produced fall Chinook in the Coquille River Basin. Second, conserve the genetic diversity of naturally spawning fall Chinook in the Coquille River Basin. Third, increase the abundance of naturally produced fall Chinook to a self-sustaining level of 2,833 fish for 4 years, with a high likelihood of regularly exceeding that value in the future. It's important to note that this conservation hatchery program is independent of another hatchery program in the Coquille, and that's the Harvest Augmentation Program. That long-standing augmentation program focuses on harvestable fish for anglers by releasing adipose fin-clipped fish in the lower river, where a significant portion of the angling takes place. This conservation program is focused on increasing natural spawners by releasing unmarked, not fin-clipped, but coated wire tagged Chinook in the upper basin near the spawning grounds. Next slide, please, Michelle. So it's the operational details that Greg and I are here to discuss. Operational details of that plan included the use of wild brood stock only, an approval for which included an approval from the Commission for an annual maximum of up to 100,000 smolts to be released as part of that program. However, due to current hatchery capacity limitations in the region, our goal is currently limited to releasing 47,000 smolts until that capacity situation is rectified. The fish are 100% marked with coated wire tag. And again, the purpose of this program is to have the returning fish spawn in the wild to rebuild the population. So we don't want them externally clipped and be mistaken as a harvestable hatchery fish by the anglers. We seek to maximize genetic diversity through our spawning protocols. As I mentioned, we release these smolts in the upper basin near the spawning grounds to help them home as adults back to those areas. We also release these fish as larger size smolts as opposed to small size fish. The aim there is to minimize predation and increase survival. We grow the fish larger to hopefully take them out of that prey-based window of the smallmouth bass that I addressed earlier. Next slide, please. So we've had some challenges. One of the major challenges that we have faced with standing up this program, even at the 47,000 smolt release level, has been brood stock collection. We have only reached our brood goal once in 4 years. And I'd direct the commission and those participating with us today, focus on the wild females. That's where the eggs come from. So think of that number there. Given the low wild returns that Greg shared on that graph and discussed earlier, trapping success has been very low. Traps have failed to operate during the fall freshets. Debris and leaves come and really compromise the integrity and effectiveness of these main stem traps. ODFW and the tribe concurred not to deploy the traps in 24 and 25 because of the low success, given the tremendous amount of collective staff time we spent. Again, effort was very high trying these methods, but the low wild returns prevented us from meeting brood goals. I'd say fishing is tough, whether it's rod and reel or a trap like you see on your screen, when you're fishing on extreme low abundance, as we are here. I'd also note the tangle netting, another proven standard method. We used that to a greater extent in 2023 and 24 and 25. We had marginal success in 2023 and less in 24 and 25. And again, we collectively see this as a primary function of low wild abundance as we seek to collect exclusively natural origin fish as the plan had originally contemplated. We've given it one heck of a go, but we're here to talk to you about an adjustment. Next slide, please. Perfect, thank you. So here's the smolt release history. Prior slide talked about the adults, where the eggs come. This is what we're actually putting back in the river in the ways I discussed above as one of our management responses. The subsequent releases of fall Chinook smolts have been low given the brood collection difficulties. The current target release, as mentioned, is 47,000 fish, and that we nearly reached that in 2024. I think we collectively see that as the year we made it. The 2026 release number that you see there is now based on the egg take if we continue to use exclusively natural origin or wild brood stock. That number for 26 can be enhanced significantly. My expectation is to meet our 47,000 fish goal if we're able to secure the adjustment and use hatchery and wild crosses. We have surplus Coquille River Fall Chinook hatchery program that are from the Coquille that would allow us to fill the cup of this important action, so to speak. So Greg, I'm going to turn it back to you now.
Thank you, John. If we can move to the next slide. So to reiterate, the primary challenge has been the lack of wild returning fish to use as brood stock and the subsequent low smolt releases. If maintained, this will mean very low returns in future years and will impact our ability to evaluate this program. Also, low smolt releases will reduce the likelihood of achieving the goal of establishing a naturally produced population that is above the critical abundance threshold moving forward. Next slide, please. Our recommendation to address these issues is to incorporate hatchery origin broodstock into the program. Generally, there are additional hatchery origin fish collected every fall, and they could be used as brood. A 2024 genetic study that was conducted by OSU for the tribe found no difference in genetic diversity at the markers evaluated and no genetic differentiation between hatchery and wild Chinook in the Coquille River. However, we will continue to incorporate as many wild origin brood as possible into the program. Next slide, please. As part of the staff report in 2022, the department and the tribe committed to the use of 100% wild fish for the program. Given the proposed change, we are bringing this to you today for approval. The action we are requesting is consistent with other conservation hatchery programs in Oregon and aligns with the fish hatchery management policy and associated Oregon administrative rule that allows for the use of hatchery origin brood for conservation programs. This rule states, for conservation hatchery programs, broodstock shall be derived from the wild population targeted for hatchery intervention, or from nearby wild or hatchery populations with desired characteristics if the targeted wild population is extirpated or too depressed to provide brood fish. Additionally, both the CMP and language from the 2022 Commission approval detail the potential for adaptive management as part of our ongoing efforts. I would like to mention that this program will undergo review as part of the CMP assessment beginning this year, and that will be presented to the Commission in 2027. Next slide, please. So in summary, we are asking that the Commission approves the use of hatchery origin broodstock for this program. Thank you for your time, and please let us know if you have any questions.
Thank you. Director, I can see a hand from Commissioner Morrison, but if there are others, if you can let me know. Go ahead, Commissioner Morrison.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the presentation. I appreciate the thoughtfulness that's gone into bringing this to the commission. I think it's it's a good time to kind of reflect on the importance of hatcheries in restoration of native stocks, the value that hatchery programs can provide to us. And I think we all recognize that central to that is using the appropriate stock. And so for me, what's really persuasive in this presentation is exactly that the hatchery fish that we're intending to bring in here to augment the wild fish returns are the appropriate stock for the coquille. And that to me, again, is really persuasive. Given that, I guess the question I have is, since there is a change here, even though, again, it's the appropriate stock, is this something that NMFS needs to sign off on as well? Or is this something that is within the discretion of ODF&W and the commission to go ahead and move forward with?
Yeah, Chair Wall, Commissioner Morrison, thank you for the question. My understanding, based on the prior approval of this program and the ability to have adaptive management within it, that we can move forward with that action internally, if you will, as an ODFW action.
Yeah, and Greg, I concur. That's the spot on response. I just wanted to share for the commissioner, just a reminder. And of course, the fall Chinook stock here that we're addressing is not an ESA listed animal, and so we always coordinate with our federal partners. As Greg said, the program was approved 4 years ago, and the challenge has not been is this the right thing to do from NMFS perspective? I believe that's been addressed. We haven't been able to put it on the ground in the way that we need to.
Thank you both.
Director, it looks like we have another hand up, but I can't tell who it is. Can you see that?
My
I
hand
am
is
not-
actually up. This is Becky. My hand has stayed up for like the last 2 hours, but my hand is actually up.
Okay, go ahead. Ask your question.
Oh gosh. John and Greg, good to see you. John, I appreciate I like to see our co-management in real time here with both of you here. We're working on this problem and situation. I continue to be sobered by the state of the situation there in the Coquille. I appreciate that you guys are working on everything you can do to try to deal with the bass. And I understand that this is not ideal, but yeah, I just want to say that I appreciate you guys continuing to work on this.
Absolutely, Commissioner Hatfield-Hyde, and appreciate your support for the program initially and the remarks today. So I've shared with Greg, Greg and everybody in the department has to think a lot about statewide every year, and that's a lot. One of the things that co-management has brought to the extreme challenges of the Coquille River, I would just submit, is that Coquille people have been living on and thinking about and caring about the Coquille River for 10,000 years. My team in the Natural Resources Office and I enjoy the luxury of thinking about the Coquille River, working on the Coquille River every single day. We have a lot to cover, but That's one of the beauties of this co-management relationship is my colleague Greg and those in Fish Division, et cetera, they got a lot of things to cover. We really bring that 10,000 years plus everyday sort of focus and thinking to this problem, and enjoy the collaboration we've had with the department since the MOA is put in place.
Thank you. I have a few questions. I wanted to, first of all, appreciate the update and the presentations by both of you. And I have a couple just detail questions, probably for Greg. It said in the staff report that the brood goal wasn't met. What is the brood goal, actually?
Yeah, Chair Wall, Commissioners. So right now the brood goal is 18 pair to meet that 47,000 smolt release.
Thank you. And just a quick follow-up on that. Are we currently using any wild brood for the augmentation part of the hatchery programs?
Yeah, Greg, I can take that. The answer to that, Chair Wall, is no, albeit there is an exception. Given that we initiated the program, the conservation program 4 years ago, and recall that slide, you see there's been some males here and there. One of the recommendations that we received from the OSU Genomics Lab was to, where it's easy and convenient, for example, we've collected some males for the conservation program, put those gametes into the augmentation program kind of when you can. And so last year we had, and I believe the year before, just 2 to 3 extra males that were natural origin. So to follow the recommendations of the geneticists and maintain that genetic diversity, integrity, and the lack of differentiation, we took advantage, but it's such a very small scale, Chair.
Thank you. The third just detail question is on the actual estimated, at least estimated returns of adult wild in the 4 years. We know what the collected were. Do we have a sense? Do we know what the returns were? What's the abundance?
So Chair Wall, Commissioners, we do have a sense. If you're asking, I just want to clarify for the wild returning fish to the spawning grounds.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yes, we do via surveys that are conducted have that number, and that's what we spoke to prior, that number has been hovering around that 500 fish mark for the last 7 or 8 years.
Thank you. That's real helpful.
Chair Wall, Commissioner Brink has his hand up, just so you know.
Okay. I'm going to just ask a couple more and then I'll go to Commissioner Spellberg. Thank you, Director. I said that I appreciate what you two just presented and equally appreciate what the Coquille tribe has done in support of conservation of habitat, bass removal, monitoring and that sort of thing. And the question to you, John, if you will, could you talk about whether the tribe is in a position to continue to put support clearly and resources into those two things, the habitat and bass removal and the monitoring?
I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to that. So after I saw the commission in 2022 asking to add this tool to our toolbox to address the Coquille. And I don't have the spreadsheet in front of me, but with respect to habitat restoration and the tribe's shared desire and commitment to doing that, we secured a $3 million fish passage barrier grant that was a federal grant. It was a tribal only set aside. My team down the hall working with watershed associations and ODFW are putting that money on the ground, addressing passage barriers in the Coquille River Basin. So that's after this happened, we're continuing to do that. We have another, we're able to secure another federal grant about 2 years ago for habitat restoration. I'm excited to be working with private landowners to be launching a major habitat restoration stream complexity habitat restoration and protection program in the North Fork of the Coquille. It's a large-scale project. Just a couple of examples of kind of post-conservation hatchery approval. We continue to really work hard on the habitat piece. I think we've all seen that there's some dynamics happening within the availability of federal funding for this work, but the tribe will continue to be very aggressive. And I predict just as successful as we have been in pursuit of that. So we remain absolutely committed to the holistic approach to restoration of the ecology of the Coquille River Basin. Electrofishing. This is, when Chris Kern and I originally presented this, I think he and I both said, the tools we have to address illegally introduced invasive smallmouth bass are limited. But we are using the best available tools and we're using them very aggressively. Between the department staff and between the tribe staff, we have 4 electrofishing craft that we run in a coordinated manner every day of the week for nearly 3 months. Just anecdotally, I know that my team removed 12,500 bass in the last electrofishing season, and I expect that the departments, our partners over there, did about the same. The Coquille River Steppe Association Bass Derby. This is a great example of how the community has rallied around the work we're doing in the Coquille. They go out and they secure donations from people and from businesses in the community. We in ODFW put tags in bass, and as hard as it is, we release those bass back into the river and then advertise the opportunity for anglers to come and fish for bass. Maybe they'll catch one with a tag, and those might be worth $50. We've had prize fish out there that's worth as many as $5,000. That's driven effort to enlist the recreational angling community to helping us get those bass out of there. So from the electrofishing standpoint, I continue to believe we're going to have the resources to continue that effort here at the tribe. I believe the communities continue to support the Bass Derby that's removing tens of thousands of bass annually as well. So I don't see us letting up there, Chair.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I want to ask one more just follow-up question on it. What about the monitoring? Because in this one, monitoring is important anywhere, but it's absolutely critical here. Is that a place where the tribe will be able to participate if the federal money comes through, or is that something that the tribe can put resources into otherwise?
Great question. Again, I welcome it. And to be clear, the tribe is investing not only the federal grant funding. It's we invest tribal funds. We look to OWEB. We look to federal grants. We look to all kinds of organizations to collect as much as we can to put forward, even without what it called the dynamics in the federal funding. The tribe is positioned to assist with monitoring. Mindful of the life cycle of the Chinook salmon in the basin and those low smolt release numbers that we've shared, there hasn't been much to monitor yet. But we will be able to, I have a team of 5 fisheries biologists that work in my office. We have resources and we're pursuing more resources to put not only those people on the spawning grounds to help with monitoring, but also maybe to enlist some temporary assistance as well with expanded spawning ground monitoring. Also, and Greg and I chose not to put too weedy things into the presentation, we are also doing what's called parented-based tagging of these conservation fish. What that allows us to do is take samples from either carcasses we find on the spawning grounds, angler caught fish, even if released, fish that may swim into various trap facilities across the basin otherwise. That's another state-of-the-art monitoring tool, parentage-based tagging, that we have deployed. But again, I think I would circle back to early, low smolt release numbers for the program, make monitoring a challenge, which Greg addressed, being able to have the ability to get the number of smolts out under this program from the right brood stock. When the wilds just don't give us enough fish, it really does enhance our ability to monitor the effectiveness of this action and continue to evaluate.
Thank you. That's really helpful to hear. And part of the reason I'm asking the questions, and as many as I am on this one, is this is one that it was tough when it came up in 22. It's even tougher to look at now. And there are a lot of places across the state that could have the same experience that we are seeing in the Coquille Basin. And so it seems important to get this one right if we can. And we have in front of us a proposal. We also know that we're about to go into the CMP process and review, and what are we going to do overall? So those are reasons that I really want to ask a few more questions on this one, because it seems important to get this one right. And one of those questions is, and this is probably a question for you, Greg, is at the end of the day, how does this proposal help us recover the wild run in the Coquille River? Because I understand the drive to have more fish and be able to have more returns. But a key goal of this is to try to recover the actual wild run in the Coquille. So how does this help us get there?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Wall, Commissioners. So, you know, if we are able to consistently hit that release goal, we would anticipate returning numbers that would be, you know, just from that program alone with no other action, close to that critical abundance goal of just over 2,800 fish. Now, our goal here with this program is that we would meet that critical abundance number for 4 years. There is the possibility, I want to clarify, of if we're confident that we'll meet that goal moving forward, to allow those fish then to populate on their own. That ultimately is the end goal here, that we can achieve that number and walk away from this and have that be a self-sustaining population. And now I would just add that in addition to this program, that, you know, those other actions we've talked about to address limiting factors such as bass removal, even habitat restoration, albeit habitat restoration for Chinook versus say coho is a bit more challenging. Those are also other actions that we're looking into to help rebolster this population.
So just to follow up on that, Greg, thank you. If we're to the point where it's not working to use wild brood for the conservation hatchery program, and we're saying we want to augment that with, or bad choice of word, we want to add hatchery in, and then call the wild plus hatchery generations the Coquille population. How is that not a CMP kind of question, rather than just moving forward with accepting that we're not making it and we're going to augment these with hatchery? Because it seems like we're shifting. This is a big decision to shift from really trying to recover the wild population to recognizing it isn't working and moving to a mix of wild and hatchery fish here, and calling that blend the Coquille population.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Chair Wall, Commissioners, I think one of the things that makes us feel, I would say, more comfortable moving forward with this action is we still want to incorporate as many wild fish as possible. Wild fish as possible, and backfill with hatchery fish for the use of brood. You know, having the knowledge that there is genetic similarities here, but still adding those wild fish in makes us more confident that we won't see the potential genetic issues moving forward. So I think hopefully that answers the question. If not, I'm happy. I believe Tom Stahl is on the line too, if he has anything else to add beyond what I've what I've mentioned, but hopefully that helps answer your question.
Thank you. It looks like both Sean and Tom have come on, so if whichever you want to go with,
I'll let Tom go.
go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Chair Wall, Vice Chair Hatfield Hyde, Commissioners, Director Colbert. For the record, my name is Tom Stahl. I'm the Deputy Administrator for Inland Fish and Fish Division. And yeah, everything Greg said is true. I would just like to add that once we decided we needed a conservation hatchery program, we knew that the natural production in the Coquille of Chinook was in dire straits. And this situation actually is a little bit unique to my knowledge. Usually for conservation hatchery programs, we start with hatchery fish because the numbers of wild fish are so low or not even present. So we're just moving towards a more common practice for conservation hatchery programs here. And the natural production needs to be bolstered by this program. And we use hatchery fish and wild fish to do that. As Greg said, once we hit the target number for this program for natural production, the intent for a number of years, the intent is that once that becomes back to that level, this conservation hatchery program won't be needed any longer and will be discontinued. And we have seen with other Chinook, albeit spring Chinook, that once hatchery origin fish are allowed to reproduce with natural production in the natural situation, that any differences you see in their fitness relative to wild fish go away pretty quickly. So we would expect that to happen in this situation as well.
So if the blend of the natural fall Chinook in the Coquille and hatchery used in the conservation program get to 2,800 return for 4 years, that's the metric for success in the conservation program? And so
Yes,
then you're back to, that is the population. So we are accepting that that is the population, right? That it's a blend at that point.
Well, yeah, natural production legally is just defined as fish that are reproducing naturally out in the spawning grounds. Naturally, there can be hatchery influences into that population. So yes, we are accepting that, though I would say that's not too much different than the current situation. It really comes down to how you manage your fishery augmentation programs to try to limit that. But there's naturally always some interplay between hatchery and wild fish on the spawning grounds and in the hatchery. And I think John answered the question around you had about integrating wild fish into that other hatchery program, the fishery augmentation one. And that is something that we did do historically until the numbers dropped below that level. So we want to make sure that these populations are as close to each other as possible, so there are as few impacts as possible.
Thank you. And you can tell from my questions that this one it just continues to be a very hard question to get to the end. This is a tough question. The one I have still is, if you could just say a little bit more about why this is something that we should do now rather than look at it as part of the CMP, where we would be looking at the whole area and it's more than just looking at how many NORs are coming back.
Chair Wall, Commissioners, I'm happy to take a stab at that. I think my first thought there is just the time sensitivity surrounding the population right now in the Coquille and the need to get as many conservation smolts released out. We do, of course, are going to have a lag here of 3 or 4 years before we see returning adults. And so the sooner we can get to that point, in my opinion, I think in the agency's opinion, the better, and the tribes as well.
Yeah, Greg, and I want to address that as well, underscoring from the Coquille Tribe's perspective, we are very, very late to the game already. Greg's chart showed, we concur that, we are 8 consecutive years. That's 2 complete life cycles of this animal in this basin below, conservation threshold or critical abundance. Think of that as the number that has been developed to say that natural population, that wild population, is really functioning as a population. Given that we are so deeply into the crisis on the Coquille, it's just simply not acceptable to the Coquille tribe to wait for some more planning processes when the information is right there in front of us that we need to act now.
Thank you. Let's see, we should go, I may come back with another question, but let's go to Commissioner Spellbrink.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Wall. Yeah, John, and I think I remember in your presentation there too that the tribe, you did do genetics analysis there too, and the genetics analysis that you did didn't show any difference at all between the hatchery that originally came from wild stocks there and the lower river now and the upriver wild. Isn't that right?
That's right, Commissioner Spellbrink, and I think that makes this a less difficult question, and that is to the extent that I won't soapbox this long, but one of the reasons that state policy protects wild salmonids or wild Chinook or steelhead, one of the primary reasons is to conserve that genetically based adaptivity to that particular landscape. Okay, so this is one of the primary reasons state policy has us really focus and care and monitor and work on those wild populations, is to retain that adaptivity, that adaptation that has occurred to that landscape. So when we look at the issue before us, we have analyzed the genetic composition, or Oregon State has, the same lab that ODFW uses, to see where are we relative to the what we call the hatchery Chinook and the natural origin and wild Chinook. In this case, and with the pros before you, at least the best tools available to us now say, if you're trying to preserve the genetic integrity of Coquille River fall Chinook, both of these subpopulations can be effectively used to accomplish that.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, I'm 100% agreement. I like you kind of feel like we waited too long as it is here, but you can only do what you can do. But when you can do it, I'd say let's get it done. So anyway, I'm 100% for the modification.
Chair Wall, Commissioner Labhart has his hand up.
Thank you, Commissioner Labhart.
Okay, thank you, Chair Wall. So when I was reviewing this agenda item, I asked myself a couple of questions. Is this aligned with policy, and is it aligned with our legal format? And so, we pushed the button in 2022 with the Conservation Hatchery Program. And so I believe that it aligns with our fish hatchery management policy from that standpoint, because we approved it under that format. But more importantly, I looked at the OAR, which is 635.07.054, which states, quote, "For conservation hatchery programs, broodstock shall be derived from wild populations targeted for hatchery intervention or from nearby wild or hatchery populations with desired characteristics if the targeted wild population is extirpated or too depressed to provide the brood fish." And so clearly that answers the question for me. Is the staff presentation is aligned with policy, and it is definitely aligned with the statute, or excuse me, the OAR that we are to follow. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other hands up, Director?
I'm just
happy.
I'm happy to make a motion, but
Can we just, 1 second, I'm just checking with Michelle to see if we have anyone signed up for comment on this one. Excuse me, Vice Chair.
sorry.
We did have one individual, but he is not in the room this afternoon.
Great, thank you.
Back to you, Vice Chair.
Well, Chair Wall, do you have another question? I don't want to cut off if you have more questions.
I have one other question. I just want to,
Perfect.
and I think this is maybe to you, Tom, is do we have the monitoring resources to actually be able to track this well enough to know that we're meeting the metrics, that we are, what the status is of the wild population, and or the blended population of wild plus hatchery in the conservation program?
Chair Wall, yes, we have the resources right now within ODFW to be tracking the status of the natural population. Those are the numbers that Greg showed you in that one graph earlier. But it's going to be, we're going to need a little bit more intent in that monitoring. We'll be able to also detect these fish from the conservation hatchery program on the spawning grounds. They're going to be marked with coded wire tags, a little piece of metal that they can detect out on the spawning grounds. Or so they'll also, the current monitoring will be able to evaluate this to some degree, but given the numbers of returns from this program, we're probably going to need to intensify that level. And we've been talking about that. And I think John spoke to that, and we'll be doing that with the tribe's help to intensify these efforts this coming year, which is when we expect more fish back from that 1 year when we actually met or got close to our release goals for this program.
Good point. Thank you. That's it on my questions, so we can go back to you, Vice Chair.
Okay, I'll make a motion. I realize this is a tough situation. I appreciate the work, and maybe that good, one good group in 2024 will come back and you'll be able to capture a lot of wild fish out of that one for the future. I would sure hope that. And then that, I think, definitely addresses, some of Chair Wall's concerns about, how we're taking care of our wild fish. I wish this was a better situation, but I am sure thankful for the efforts that are going on. And I'll just make a motion I move to approve the department to include hatchery origin broodstock as part of the Coquille Fall Chinook Conservation Hatchery Program.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the department to include hatchery origin broodstock as part of the Coquille Fall Chinook Conservation Hatchery Program. Let's do a voice response on this one, if you will, Michelle.
Morrison,
Yes.
Modal,
Yes.
Labhart,
Yes.
Spellbrink,
Yes.
Haldefreeze,
Yes.
Hatfield Hyde,
Yes.
Wall.
Reluctantly, I'm voting no on this one because I feel so strongly that we should do this as part of the CMP process, with great appreciation for the answers and the huge work. Motion passes, and thank you to all of you for this and for huge amounts of work from the tribe and from staff, and from volunteers in the community throughout this effort. We can hope for absolute best on this and decent returns soon. So thank you all. If there's nothing else, I think we are adjourned for today.
Thank you.
Thank you all, commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.